it's Lou Brutus backstage at Sonic Temple in Columbus, Ohio with David Draiman of Disturbed. It's so nice to see you back on U.S. soil.
Good to be back.
Spin me tales of a European tour that looked like some of the most fun you've ever had in your life.
It was great. This was incredibly moving and successful and exhausting and all of the above. Just front to back intensity. The crowds were absolutely spectacular everywhere we went. Just really nice to see this being essentially our first headlining European run in, I think, about 8 years since we did a legitimate headlining run that wasn't a festival package.
Sure.
And having our buddies in Skindred along with us was just amazing. They definitely set the bar for us every night, and they're an amazing band in their own right. And it was just a great camaraderie, great vibe. And that's my son that you heard in the background there. Who I haven't seen for a month, so seeing him now.
And here he is stuck doing press with me instead of...
It's all good.
Was there maybe one venue that you had not played before that had a sense of history or maybe a sense of occasion walking in and trotting on the boards?
Before. Unfortunately, Lou, as you know, in our line of work, the venues tend to blend into one another from time to time. It was kind of nice in, trying to remember, somewhere in Germany. I don't remember if it was Cologne. Like I said, they start to blur. But there's this one venue that we've played a few other times, but never as a headliner selling it out. And I remember the very first time we played there, they have these big catwalks all over the place that now are shielded off from the crowd that used to be completely exposed on back in the day, that we originally played the building with Manson way, way, way back on our very first European tour.
Right.
So to go back to that building and fill it to capacity with just us was rather satisfying.
Why do you suppose it took so long to get back there to do these shows? I would have thought they were clamoring for you. I know they are. Why didn't it work out?
Well, as far as just coming back as a headliner, we for a very, very long time had stuck to the policy of trying to join forces. We went out with Avenged Sevenfold in Europe. We did Taste of Chaos in Europe, a package branded tour that was pretty heavily stacked. And there are pros and cons to that when you combine strengths with other bands, and that is that you're ensuring, hopefully, a more valuable ticket, something that people want to spend the money on. But what the downside to that is that you never really end up finding what your own true value is.
And what your true audience is, too,
Yes. And in a post-immortalized environment for us, it was important to see what we were capable of. And I think that much to our personal chagrin of sorts, because we would have rather accommodate as many people as wanted to come see us, but the shows blew out really quickly. And much to the delight of promoters and management and everybody else, we would have loved to have played to more people in bigger rooms, and we will next time. The statement has been made. So mission accomplished of sorts. But it definitely was overwhelming seeing the passion people had for it and how hungry they were for it. So we're flattered and blown away by the response, and we've been having conversations about a festival run, a European festival run in 2020. So we're getting that together.
Very nice. Now, one last thing about the European run. Along with knowing each other a long time, we're friends on social media, and as much as I enjoyed the photos and the video from the concerts, the dinners. It's a good thing you're out there sweating like a dog for hours a night, because you would have come back about 400 pounds.
Dude, yeah. When you're in Europe and you can have some of the most amazing culinary treasures in existence and some of the finest wine, and just too many people when they tour They don't take the time. They don't make the time to actually enjoy themselves a little bit. You know, you're in these meccas of
culture and
yeah,
art and food and all good things in civilization.
Not dive in a little bit? You know, if you have to be able to sample the spices of life every once in a while.
There you go. If you were to give one tip on just one restaurant in Europe, where would it be? Where would you send anybody?
Oh, Lena, what was the name of the one in Cologne? The crazy one we went. I mean, we went to Noma as well, which was great.
That's always, but you can get that here, yeah.
But Cologne was, what was the name of the place? Yeah. Yeah. No.
We'll find it.
I gotta remember it, but it was in this unbelievable hotel, this gorgeous, old, classic, fantastic, beautiful building. It was easily. It was a 3 Michelin star rated place, and it was absolutely fantastic. And I'll send you the name. I will remember it, and I will send you the name.
Now let me ask you a question in regard to the sense of history and the sense of occasion. When you get anywhere, it doesn't have to be Europe, you tour all over the world, you've certainly been everywhere in the United States and Canada. When you go to a place, in both a musical sense, a musical history sense, or in the sense of general history, do you ever feel odd walking through streets someplace, or do you stop and think, oh, good Lord, here's a place where people have walked for 500 years? And I ask you this because I know what a student of history you are.
Yeah, there's numerous spots throughout Europe that are both elating and chilling, depending on your perspective. I'll never forget the first time that we did Rock am Ring, I believe it was, in Germany, and you're there in the very spot that Hitler gave his speeches. Terrifying. Somewhat gratifying now that people go over to the spot and make it their point to defecate in the spot and piss on it. So, you know, poetic justice of sort.
This is in Nuremberg? Oh, here we go.
The name of the restaurant is Vendôme, or Vendôme. I don't know exactly how they pronounce it. Vendôme im Schloss Bensberg. Yeah.
Man, that don't look like In-N-Out Burger.
It was awesome.
But and Rock and Ring, by the way, this is in Nuremberg?
Yeah.
Okay, and this is where the Nuremberg Nazi rallies were held.
Yes. And you can see where the podium was. You can see where I mean, if you can compare the old, pre-World War II photos to the modern day, and it just matches up perfectly without all of the paraphernalia. Chilling.
And not to make, I'm not making light of that at all. Does it feel pretty good to go there yourself and literally have people dancing on the graves of this evil?
Absolutely, absolute satisfaction. Still alive.
Now let's talk about what's coming up in the summer, because the last run in the United States, you had a production. I've seen everything you guys have ever done. It was the best thing you ever did.
Thank you.
So I'm wondering, with the run coming up in the summer and some of this being in amphitheaters, what the production is going to be like. I would imagine there had to be some design changes.
There is. Unfortunately, we can't have that wonderful stage that we brought out with us into the arena.
That was awesome. That was crazy.
That was my favorite part of the whole production. I loved it. It was like the Starship Disturbed. It was great. Yeah, we're still trying to piece together what we can and can't bring as far as our bag of tricks is concerned. But I think that one of the great things about what Disturbed has evolved into is that we're not dependent on all the toys. The music and the way the show is constructed and the amount that we engage the audience and make them a really bona fide part of the experience makes for a more fulfilling night regardless. It's always nice to have those moments where people are urged to whip out the camera phones and take the snapshots of the big pyro or things of that nature, and we love it, don't get me wrong. I mean, we're still kids in that sense too, but I think that at the end of the day, even if we can't do everything that we'd like to realistically do, they still get as much of us as they ever will, and we still leave every ounce of our being on that stage. So the show will be powerful, and it will connect no matter how many toys we bring along.
To paraphrase, you can have all of the great pyro in the world, but if your songs suck, it's not going to be too much of a concert.
If your songs suck, if you're not a great live band to begin with, if you don't have that connection with the audience, maybe more important than anything else, and the connection is something that we take tremendous pride in.
Well, you know what? That's a good point to maybe chat about next, because how do you learn how to make that connection, particularly going, and I watched you grow as a band. I remember seeing you with fifth, sixth, bottom of the bill kind of stuff in smaller places. How do you, as a singer and also collectively as a group, how do you learn how to reach somebody at the back of a hockey arena or a stadium? Because great club bands can't always make that transition.
It's true. There are the comparison that I always make, and it may be nerd-like and it may be somewhat crude.
Talk nerdy to me. I like that.
But it's like a Jedi. You either have the metachlorian count in you or you don't.
That's nerdy, by the way.
It's pretty nerdy. But you can try to teach a band or a singer or a frontman, from the day they're born till the day they die, the craft of being able to affect people in a certain way, of being able to connect with them on that level, and to be able to have that very, very powerful symbiotic relationship. And it may not translate if they simply don't have the innate,
inborn
ability. And it may sound crass to an extent, but it's just absolute truth. Much like you can't teach a guy my size, to all of a sudden be an NFL linebacker. It's just not going to happen one day. Yeah, I'll die.
You got a big heart, kid, but that's
there are limitations, and if you have it in you and you can develop it, and I've certainly gotten better at it, and we've gotten better at it over the course of our career, certainly, and it is something that you can grow more powerful in. But if it's just not in you, you can spend all the time in the world, and you'll get better to an extent, but never past the threshold, so to speak.
What about the same sort of question for songwriting? You guys started out of the gate very strong, but you had years before nobody knew who you were to sort of learn the craft. But the songwriting, I think, has improved markedly through the years. I would point to A Reason to Fight. Maybe it's the best song I think you've written.
Thank you.
Certainly, I think emotionally it's probably the strongest. How do you approach songwriting differently now to explain the sort of evolution?
We really don't approach it very differently at all, to be honest. We've just gotten more comfortable with one another.
Right.
We've gotten more comfortable in our own skin, so to speak. We're more at ease with wearing our heart on our sleeve. But the actual process in of itself, and that song in particular, is a perfect example of we had just kind of reached a wall in the studio where we were working on one idea and trying to develop it, and it was kind of getting a little cold, and I said, let's just change direction, let's try something completely different. And Danny started playing this one riff that I had heard him play a couple times on the acoustic, just this beautiful little melodic pattern. And I'm like, he went through it once or twice. I'm like, keep playing it, and just close my eyes and start thinking about what could fit. And within about 5 minutes, I already had the beginnings of a melody to sing along to it. And after 10 or 15 minutes, it became more developed. And then we moved from that room into the room with the piano, where Kevin ended up trying to help us hone in on the right key and trying to make sure everything was comfortable. And it went further, and within 24 hours, I was already penning lyrics. I mean, it came together very organically, naturally, and quickly, relatively speaking. The subject matter actually is something that is close to all of our hearts. Danny in particular had a very strong desire to write a song about this particular subject matter, as did all of us. And he actually ended up penning a few of the verse lines on his own. Really beautiful stuff. I think that the more we work together and the older we get, the less we're worried about, specific roles per se, and we're just open to each other's input on everything, whether it's musical or lyrical, and the collaborative nature of how we do what we do has intensified. And maybe that's part of what makes for better songwriting, is just being a little bit more open to everything.
Do you enjoy the craftsmanship the same way, creating a song and pulling it out of the ether?
It's absolute, not to be stereotypical here, but it is magic. It literally is. I mean, you can't ever, you can't plan moments like that. They just happen. And they happen when you're very lucky and you're tapped into one another, and they happen when you're lucky enough to find the guys that you were meant to write music with in your life. And, Danny really is the Joe Perry to my Steven Tyler of sorts. We really just blend beautifully together in terms of how we create. And Mikey's always been that rhythmic, we call him the backbone of the band for a reason, and it sometimes it takes a hiatus or things of that nature, and going away from what you've grown so strong with, to realize just how powerful it really is. And we have a greater appreciation for our contributions and what they mean to the overall equation than we ever have before.
David Draiman, you are an interesting human being, and I always appreciate your time. I love seeing you. God bless you and the family.